Hello, all benders and non-benders, and welcome back to Avatar Generations. Today, we've got some brand new Earthbenders to talk about. We are, of course, going to talk about Trial Boss Bumi, but first, we're actually going to talk about the brand new offensive Omashu soldier that is released as a part of the King of Omashu event. If you're playing the game right now, you can get this guy completely free doing the event quests. So we're going to be talking about what this guy does first, and then we'll use that to lead into Bumi, as with Bumi being out, you also want to be able to get this guy as soon as possible. So what does the Omashu soldier do, aside from possibly hate cabbages? Well, his basic is Stone Shift, deals counter force damage to one enemy. Now what is that? This will actually remove defensive buffs. Keep in mind though, not stances, this is buffs, so like defense up or something like that. And heals himself for each buff removed. So let's say the enemy has defense up and tenacity. He removes both of those buffs and heals himself based on however many buffs he removes. This will also deal some increased damage to targets in the front line. Just to remind yourself, the front line opponent takes a bit less damage. I believe the number is 10% in that particular position. So he'll do a little more damage just to kind of offset that. Now, his advanced skill is where he does get interesting. He will deal knockdown damage to one enemy. Now, what is knockdown damage? What this does, on a normal day, it has a 35% chance to knock down the enemy for one turn, basically makes them lose a turn. And it's a 100% chance if they're inflicted with an elemental effect that matches the casters. Now, in this case, that would be the earth element. You'll see kind of later on, he would pair really well with Bumi. Also pair really well with Avatar Aang if you've just had an extra turn and you've used the Earthbender move. But basically, if you have an Earth debuff on the enemy, it's guaranteed to knock them down, of course not accounting for accuracy and resistance checks. Additionally, he actually grants immunity to all allies, so a little bit of support there to keep his allies from getting debuffed or have negative states on them. And this actually deals increased damage targets in the regen slot. That's a slot that each turn that person in the slot will get a little bit of HP back. This does a little more damage to that. Now looking at his passive here, at base it's pretty simple, and again, you get 6 copies of this guy for free, so you do get the maximum effect. Gain accuracy and echo for one turn when part of a combo, with level 4 increasing that one turn to 2 turns. Now, what does this do? Accuracy, that just increases your chance of inflicting debuffs, in this case, that being like knockdown or the earth element. So you get increased accuracy, and then echo gives you a chance to take an extra turn. I believe it's a 35% chance if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, that is correct. So he might take an extra turn, which means he'll get closer to getting this cooldown back down, gets a hit again, always good stuff. Now this does actually have some skill mastery upgrades. Whenever he does successfully knock down an opponent, basically using his advanced skill here, he will decrease that target's resistance by 15%, basically making them even more susceptible to debuffs. At Mastery Level 3, he gets some pretty interesting ally support in that each time he successfully knocks down an enemy, he will actually increase the turn bar of the ally with the highest attack by 15%. That can be pretty helpful because, of course, if it's your ally with the highest attack, you want them to be attacking as much as possible. So that's good to keep in mind there. And also, without Arena, that's about as high as you can go. But looking at Mastery Level 4, you get a 75% chance to remove all buffs from the enemy on a successful knockdown. This will ignore resistance, so it's guaranteed if you do proc 75% chance. Basically, this just wipes all their buffs clean if you get the knockdown. I'm not too crazy on this one. if you're trying to get him powered up, you could stop pretty comfortably at level 3, and you wouldn't lose a huge amount, I believe. So that's kind of what he's got going on here. A lot of ally support with some enemy debuffs going on. Now, when you're building him, he's pretty simple. No need to go too crazy. You could go for attack. You could go for speed if you want to take more turns if you're not as worried about damage. Just when you're building him, try to make sure that you do have some accuracy substats on those artifacts. Honestly, that's probably going to serve you better than any one set. But if you wanted, as far as sets go, speed, attack, crit, those basic ones. Lifesteal 2 probably could help. He doesn't have any like crazy AoE stuff, but that's kind of what I would keep in mind. Don't go too in depth on it. Focus on getting accuracy substats first and foremost. As far as his support stuff, as the support buffs you want to use for him, he can equip a few things here. The Platypus Bear is a good 4-star option. The Owl Wolf is a very good 3-star option to equip. And then if you're running him on a team, you're probably not going to equip something based on him. But if you are wanting to do that, of course, the Owl Wolf's very good. It increases crit rate for offensive heroes. The Badger Mole is good for an HP buff. He doesn't scale on it, but we'll get into a character that does scale on that very soon. If you want some bulk, Platypus Bear is good as well. And then this actually increases accuracy of Earth Element. And then for specifically Earth Kingdom citizens, which he is a part of that, this would increase his speed a little bit. If I were to recommend something, I'd say probably the Owl Wolf is going to be the best option, followed closely by the Meadow Vole or the Platypus Bear. Looking at his relics, he's got a couple good options here, actually. The big one that you're going to want to keep in mind is this Cabbage Cart, which you get completely free to play. It is a 4-star relic, and you get all the copies in the same event that you're getting the Omashu Soldier. So you can get that maxed out very easily. You get HP and defense. And it has a one-time effect. It will only happen once per battle, but it is a pretty effect. A pretty effect. It is an effect, all right. A pretty big effect. It will remove all debuffs and negative states from him and heal him for a decent chunk if he's inflicted with a negative state. So if somebody stuns him, he will wipe that clean, heal himself, and still be able to keep rocking and rolling. This is contingent on the enemy actually having some state effects. That's kind of the kicker, is that it's not guaranteed, but it might be something to keep in mind. Now, some other options you have here is the Panda Lily. This one can give you some echo if you're on low health. I wouldn't be too crazy about this one personally. It's not even a guaranteed shot, and if you're already that low, you're probably in trouble. But the one I would really take a look at is the 3-star Silver Lilies. Has a 35% chance to reduce advanced skill cooldowns by 1 after attacking. Keep in mind, it's that advanced skill that gives him his knockdown ability, so you're going to want that up as often as possible. The Silver Lilies are probably going to be the way to go. Also, they do have an attack stat and a defense stat, and they're 3-stars, so they're very easy to get. I would personally recommend the Silver Lilies, followed closely by the Cabbage Cart, just because you do get it completely free, so you can get some pretty chunky defensive stats out of it. But that's just kind of something to keep in mind with him. He is a very interesting utility unit. He relies on a little bit of luck, let's be real here. Unless you do have some earth elements thrown out there, he's going to require a bit of luck, but if it does go your way, he can serve you very, very well. Now, the Omashu Soldier is just the appetizer. The main course is Bumi. This guy is the newest 5-star character of the Earthbender element. So taking a look at what he can do here, he's actually got a few abilities that are very interesting. His basic is Positive Jin. Deal earthbending damage to one enemy. Earthbending damage, of course, being that this has a guaranteed chance to inflict a earth debuff on the enemy. Of course, checking accuracy and resistance. And then a 35% chance to actually increase the rank of the earth element on the enemy by 1. Basically, this means that you could apply a rank 2 earth element on the enemy in just one shot. Now, looking at him, I think I've seen it to where he actually applies a earth element rank 2 and an earth element rank 1 at the same time, but that it's a little hard to tell. So he can really apply some debuffs with this. And then his damage is dealt based on his HP. Now, keep in mind, that does not fully cut out attack. That just means that this is going to scale based on attack and HP as far as how much damage it's going to be doing. Now, his advanced skill, Negative Gen, deals earthbending damage once again, so same as the other move, and then has a 35% chance to inflict the imbalance state on the enemy. Now, what does this do? It'll last for 2 turns, and it will, first of all, decrease their speed and attack 25%. So right out the gate, some pretty heavy debuffs. And then it actually has a 50% chance to make the enemy knock down at the start of their turn. Now keep in mind, this wording is a little deceptive. It does say at the start of caster's turn. You gotta keep in mind though, this debuff is going to be on the enemy. So you kind of have to read it from their point of view. So keeping that in mind, they have a 50% chance to basically be knocked down and miss a turn. Always helpful. This is kind of this is his bread and butter move. You want to get those imbalanced states as often as possible. Again, kind of keep in mind his accuracy so that those states actually do stick. Now, looking at his passive, he does a lot of stuff here. Neutral Gen. Steal 25% turn bar from a random enemy and gain access to new skills for 2 turns when the caster inflicts a negative state on the enemy or is in a negative state at the end of their turn. So, first of all, the imbalance state effect that he inflicts will trigger this. He gets to steal 25% turn bar, meaning he decreases their turn bar and he gets it. So already making him go a little bit faster. But it also happens, and again, this wording is a little confusing, when the caster inflicts a negative state on the enemy or is in a negative state. So basically, if he gets inflicted with a negative state, he will activate this as well. Now it does say that he gains some new skills for a couple turns. Let's see what those skills are here. We get 2 brand new moves. The basic is Mad Genius. Deal 3 hits of bending damage to one enemy. Now, what is bending damage? This does more damage if they have a debuff on them. So if he's been inflicting earth element debuffs like crazy, you whip out these rocks and it will absolutely slam the enemy if they have a debuff, and then gain increased accuracy for 1 turn, with that duration going up based on skill levels. Basically allowing him to make those debuffs stick more. And then his advanced is the strongest. Deal knockback damage to all enemies. This is not the same as what the Omashu soldier has. This works a little bit different. Has a 50% chance to decrease a turn bar of the enemy by 25%. So he does get some turn bar manipulation in there just to really rough them up and slow them down and make himself basically faster. And then he gets increased attack for 1 turn while he's at it, just make himself even stronger. Just like his other abilities, both of these scale on HP, so you'll definitely not want to ignore that stat. And then looking at his skill mastery effects, those are on the passive. Mastery level 2 decreases the damage taken by 25% when the enemy enters a positive state. So let's say you're fighting Suki and she goes into a counter state. He will get 10% damage reduction, just making him straight up bulkier. This can happen up to 3 times. At mastery level 3, whenever he does activate his passive, so whenever he does get that turn bar steal and all that good stuff, he gains increased max HP and crit damage for 1 turn. So his next attack is going to hit hard. It's going to have that increased max HP, increased crit damage. So especially if you are able to get away with a crit, you are going to nuke somebody with a rock. And then down here at Master Level 4, if you do get him all the way up there once Arena is available, increase damage dealt by 10% when the enemy is inflicted with a negative state. Basically, if you get them in imbalanced or somebody knocks them down, something like that, he just gets more damage. A very, very cool ability. Now, before we move on, I do want to go over if he is worth your skill tokens. That's something I haven't always mentioned with the 5 stars, but I feel like I should kind of get into the habit of discussing whether or not he's worth it and where you should stop at. This guy is really, really good if you do decide to skill him up. At maximum skills, which is admittedly very premium, but if you crank him up, he gets this up to, looks like 60% chance to increase the rank, and then this goes up to, if I'm correct here, just an even 50% chance, because you do get the 3% buffs here, you get 5 upgrades, cranks up 50% chance, so basically half and half. Even if you're not hitting like a bunch of enemies, if you're only hitting like a boss, you might still get that imbalanced state. And then going over here, it does increase how much turn bar you steal, slowing down the enemy even more and speeding you up even more. So because of that, I would definitely say he is not a bad investment at all for your skill tokens. Even his more rare skills that he gets from his passive, those can benefit pretty well. This one actually gets increased accuracy at level 2, so even one skill token would increase this one pretty good. This one takes a little bit longer. So basically, if I were to give some thresholds, level 2 is really good because it does increase how long you get that accuracy just from this. If you need a minimum stopping point, level 2 is good. But this is one of the few characters that really benefits hugely from each level because of the effect chances you get. Now let's talk about how to build him. How do you want to build this man? Now, I have a max HP set. Reason for that is, first of all, if he does happen to get on low HP, which is going to take him a minute to do, he just gets even more HP, which translates to even more damage. But he also gets bulk. The more HP you have, the harder you are to put down. And I have noticed that in spades, this dude does not die. So that would definitely serve you well. Of course, you could go for speed. Crit rate and crit damage is also good. So I could also see some lifesteal being good on him. With all of the abilities he does, and with the fact that you also want to have him with high HP, lifesteal would likely go a very long way towards keeping him bulked up and ready to rock. You probably do want a little more speed than I have here. My speed is a bit low. I'm really kind of relying on that turn bar steal, but there are ways to kind of supplement that, which we'll talk about in a second. So yeah, this is kind of what you want to keep in mind with his sets. Don't ignore the accuracy stat, though. Definitely make sure you do have some accuracy substats here, because you're going to want that to make sure his debuffs stick. If those debuffs aren't sticking, you're losing a lot of power with him. Now, looking at his options for the supports, keeping in mind 4-star and 3-star options, Platypus Bear is very good as far as stats go, if you were lucky enough to get a few of them, or if you need something a little more reasonable for 3 stars, the Shrew, or I don't actually think you can use the Rabbit because he's not technically an Earth Kingdom citizen. I think that's a technicality on that one, really, but he is not actually an Earth Kingdom citizen, he's just an Earthbender. So the Meadow Vole is a good option. If you have gotten lucky and gotten a few Platypus Bears, that can be very good too, because you do have that HP. As far as 5-star options, the best one is this Wolf Spirit. If you do happen to get a few Wolf Spirits, this guy can serve you very well because he has both HP and attack. That said, though, as far as what ability you want for your team, what support ability, I would very much recommend equipping the Badger mole to your team, as he actually cranks your HP up by 20% even at tier 1. That is a very big buff that will not only increase Bumi's defensive abilities, but also his offensive abilities. With his skills that scale on HP, that will mix very nicely. And then looking at his relics here, he has a couple options. Of course, if you were lucky enough to get 5-star options, if you got perhaps his Genomite ring, or if you even got the Yangshen Memorial from the Aang banner like I did here, this is a fantastic option, but those are definitely premium. Looking at some of the 3-star options you have here, you do have the Light of oh boy, here we go. Light of Laoguai. We're just going to move past that. Has a 35% chance to extend the durations of sleep and knockdown effects. This would only really help if you have an ally who's doing knockdown effects, because he doesn't actually do it himself aside from the occasional imbalanced effect. It can help, but you're not going to see a whole lot of use out of this one. The Pai Sho board here does increase your defense by 7% if you're at max tier. Whenever your turn bar is increased, keep in mind you do have the stealing effect, which does increase your own turn bar, so that will trigger this. However, if I'm going to be recommending a set, I'm going to recommend the Embers of Courage. It is a very easy to get 3-star set, and as I alluded to before, this is a good way to really supplement your speed if you're not quite getting as much out of your arts. This will permanently increase speed by 7% when an earth element is inflicted after you attack. This can happen up to 5 times. So once per turn, as long as you're inflicting an earth element, you're going up by 7%. Total, this can crank you up by 35% and really make up for your speed if it's not quite hitting the levels you're wanting. So that's what I'd personally recommend as a 3-star option. Of course, if you do get lucky and get some 5-star options, never a bad thing for the stats and the effects. But that is about all we have to talk about here. Bumi is a fantastic character who can do some real crazy stuff and just run absolutely wild on the enemy. Definitely worth your time and investment, especially with the Bumi boss fight requiring Earthbenders. This is not a dude you want to ignore. So that is about all we have for today. Always good stuff and a lot of fun to play with. Hope y'all have enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful. Hope it was good to help you realize that the Omashu soldier is very good. Or if you're kind of on the fence of if you're going to summon Bumi or not, hope this helped affect your decision. But keep in mind, it's up to you what it is you want. Maybe you've already got Earthbenders that you're very happy with and you don't feel the need to have another one. That is fine. It is never a bad idea to save resources. So hope y'all have enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one. If you did enjoy, if you could leave a like, if you could leave a subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it. And we shall see you later. Have a good one.